Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dustin the Blind Minnesotan. Today, in this podcast episode, we're going to talk about South Minneapolis because South Minneapolis is a very complicated place. And because South Minneapolis is so complicated that it can become its own city. So, if South Minneapolis broke away from downtown Minneapolis and North Minneapolis, it would still be a big enough population of people in just South Minneapolis that it would become a very major city just in itself. Because most of the people that contribute to Minneapolis's population live in the southern part of the city. So today, we're going to talk about my experiences in South Minneapolis and what I kind of learned. And I'm not the Minneapolis expert. I only lived in Minneapolis for a year, and I worked a full-time job when I at the Mall of America when I lived there. So I'm not like a native Minneapoliser who's born there or lived there for over 5 years. So I'm not the perfect person for this, but I just want to get you informed. So if like you decide to move to Minneapolis and all that stuff, like North Minneapolis is pretty chill. If like during the daytime, but at night you just have to hide because at night is when the gangs come out. And in North Minneapolis they just have gang problems, and that is truly it. But North Minneapolis is kind of small, the small part of Minneapolis. North Minneapolis is so small, it makes South Minneapolis look like a giant. So South Minneapolis is a way more complicated place than North Minneapolis because in South Minneapolis they have high-end neighborhoods like Uptown, they have low-income neighborhoods like Cedar Riverside, and and then there's like homeless campments next to rich people, and there's rich people 1 block away from poor people. Is just, South Minneapolis is just a complicated place. So, and I made a podcast like a non-visual version of this, and now I'm making a visual version of this because um, that's how complicated South Minneapolis is, that I need to do like multiple episodes explaining to you guys about South Minneapolis, so then you guys can kind of know and be up to date. The first neighborhood, I'm going to tell you from my experience. Someone else who lives in Minneapolis might live a different lifestyle than me, so they might not even go to these neighborhoods I go to, because I have to take the city bus because I'm visually impaired. So, and the state says I can't drive. So, so I see things from the city bus perspective. And Minneapolis has some really good neighborhoods that don't have city bus access. And because they don't have city bus access, I can't really get there. So, there's some good neighborhoods in South Minneapolis that I have never been to. And because there's no biking path, there's no walking path for me to get there, there's no city bus. So in those neighborhoods, when like we get to a neighborhood that I don't know, I'm just going to tell you that I don't know. So then you can go there by yourself and make your own opinion. Or even the neighborhoods I'm talking about, I want you to go there yourself because what I might not like, you might like. So just take what I say as face value, and you just have to go see it yourself. So the first thing I want to talk about is Minneapolis is split into 3 chunks, okay? Highway 55 goes through South Minneapolis. Highway 35W goes through South Minneapolis. And then Highway 100 goes through South Minneapolis. And then Highway 62 separates Richfield, Edina from South Minneapolis. And it separates Bloomington from South Minneapolis. it separates the Fort Snelling from South Minneapolis. It separates the airport from South Minneapolis. So this Highway 62 is like the Great Wall of South Minneapolis, kind of breaking the two areas apart. Um, and then South Minneapolis goes deep, you guys. Like South Minneapolis goes from Highway 94 here all the way down here to Highway 62. And it goes from downtown all the way to Highway 62 this way. And it goes to the Mississippi River this way. And it goes all the way to St. Louis Park, Edina, Richfield. That's what I'm saying. South Minneapolis is so big, it just makes North Minneapolis look small, because North Minneapolis is not this big. Because Columbia Heights, where I live, on the St. Paul side of the river, if you go over the river, that's towards the end of North Minneapolis. See, because I live here, and this is still North Minneapolis. So when I come on the St. Paul side of the river, I am like technically, like, if I could walk across water, I would be right in North Minneapolis. So because so South Minneapolis is way bigger than North. So let's start off at my favorite neighborhoods. My favorite neighborhood in South Minneapolis, and it's called Uptown. And Uptown before COVID used to be a very party neighborhood, and what happens is Uptown is kind of built like how Central is in Columbia Heights. So you have the major road leaving right here, leaving downtown, and it goes and along the main road there is like businesses, there is strip malls, there's restaurants and stuff. And then behind the main road, and with the restaurants and stuff, there is apartment buildings. And then behind that, a bunch of single family homes. But what makes Uptown special is the chain of lakes. See all these lakes here? They go all the way up into like Golden Valley, Plymouth. You mean over here, all these lakes are connected by streams, rivers, and all that stuff. So if like you live in town, and you live in Uptown, and you can access like these lakes. In my head it's still Lake Cahoon, but it's not Lake Cahoon anymore. It's Bay Minnechaska, and in my head it's still Lake Cahoon because when I was a kid that's what they called it. And once you live in Uptown, if you have a boat and you live in Uptown, you can hop on this lake and you can go all the way up to like Plymouth, Minnesota. And then you can go south, and then like it kind of ends like right down here. So at Lake Harriet. So it's kind of cool because this area is very popular because it has the bars, the restaurants, the boat access. So then you can go boating all day. It's just a very good neighborhood. And then when I go to St. Louis, when I lived in downtown, when I went to St. Louis Park, the bus would leave downtown Minneapolis, go this way through the Uptown neighborhood, and it goes, see these two lakes right here? There's a little road here, and it goes through these two lakes, and then it'll go this way over Highway 100, and that's when I knew I was in St. Louis Park, and it would drop me off at the shopping malls over here, right on this edge of St. Louis Park. So the bus goes all the way through St. Louis Park, and then it stops over here. And then, so then, I could see uptown, see all the luxury stores in St. Louis Park and all that stuff. And then but the negative about uptown is because there's so many apartment buildings between these lakes. So many apartment buildings between these lakes. And in uptown is their shopping area. So how it's designed is if you live over here, you drive to St. Louis Park or you drive to uptown. If you live kind of on this part of Minneapolis, you drive to uptown or you drive to Edina or St. Louis Park. So there's also over here, there's not a lot of busing, so you have to kind of have a car, because a lot of people over here on this part of I call this Southwest Minneapolis. A lot of people in Southwest Minneapolis have a lot of money because they can afford the $1 million homes around the lake, and because they're between St. Louis Park, Edina, and downtown Minneapolis. They're in a premium location. It also makes housing expensive. And so when I first moved to downtown Minneapolis, a lot of African Americans thought I lived in this part of Minneapolis. When I would talk to them, hey, I live in Minneapolis. I moved here a month ago. Blah 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 blah. On my days off in the Mall of America, everyone would 95% of African Americans will ask me, "Oh, how is Uptown doing these days?" Because I moved there after the riots. So then, because most people who are sadly white in Minneapolis, they live in the Southwest neighborhood over here, and they have access to lakes and all that stuff. The only thing I really hate about Uptown is that Uptown, I feel like I'm a sardine fish in a can, because when I'm there, this Uptown was built like over 100 years ago. So where people actually took trolleys and horses and all that stuff. And then all these people in Southwest Minneapolis now have cars, and Uptown does not have enough parking to meet the demands of the residents and of the guests that come there. So when I go over there, I see people fighting for parking. People are letting people park in their yards because they can make money that way, because there's not enough parking in the area, and it's killing the neighborhood. When we look up Uptown in the news, you'll see all these businesses are dying because. Pretend if I lived in Southwest Minneapolis and I lived down here on this lower end corner. Why should I drive all the way to Uptown, fight for parking and all that stuff? And fight for parking and all that stuff when I can just drive to Richfield, Edina, or Hopkins, or St. Louis Park, do my shopping there, where there's free parking and easy parking, and then just drive back to South Minneapolis? Why should I fight for all the limited parking in Uptown? But as a guy who's visually impaired and I don't get a lot of visitors, Uptown would be perfect because there's a Cup Foods there, there's a Target there, there's a Whole Foods there, there's Kowalski's there, there's a Lunds and Barley's there, because it's the Southwest Minneapolis' shopping area. There's a bunch of restaurants, there's a bunch of bars, and the good thing is, along the lakes here in Uptown, there's a bunch of bars on the lake. So then you can go drinking on the lake, and you can party, and this whole Uptown area brings a lot of party people in. Because who wants a party in downtown in a frickin' maze? Well, here in the downtown Minneapolis is a good place to party in the winter because you can go from bar to bar to bar. and a lot of things are made for hanging out in the winter. Well, in the summer, uptown is more of like our Florida, where it's a good place, to go and you go on the beach and party outside, and everything's walkable distance, but the issue is parking there is a bitch. So I would just advise you to park in downtown. If like you live in the northern part of the city and you have to drive all the way down here to go party, I would just advise you to park in downtown in one of the ramps and just take the bus. The bus that goes to St. Louis Park in Edina comes every 15 to half an hour to 15 to 30 minutes. So you can park in downtown, hop in the bus, go to uptown, party in uptown, and then take the bus back to downtown, hop in your car, and then leave. Because downtown Minneapolis has so many ramps that they don't know what to do with. And this is the Whittier neighborhood. And I used to do laundromat. My laundromat is here. This is where I used to go to do my laundry. So I lived in the LaSalle building, right? I lived in the LaSalle, so I would take the bus and I would come and I would go to this laundromat to do my laundry because my apartment in downtown only could do one group of clothes at a time because it was a small 2-in-1. It was so small, it was considered a single person RV washer and dryer. So I had to do laundry every single night because if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to catch up with my laundry. But so when my parents came over or had 2 or 3 days off and do my laundry, the day right before I would go back to work, I would take the bus from downtown to this laundromat, and then I would do all my laundry, my 2 or 3 days of laundry, all at once. Or when my stepdad and mom came to visit, and I didn't have a big enough machine to do all our laundry, I would they would drive because they had a rental car, or we would walk. Because sometimes I would just walk here. I'll bring my shopping cart, put my laundry in, and I would walk here, and I would do all my laundry there and then walk home. And then there's a McDonald's here, there's a Wendy's in Whittier. There's like Whittier has more of the big chain restaurants, while Uptown has more of the mom and pop restaurants. So if you want more mom and pop restaurants, you want to go to like Uptown. But Whittier has all the big chain restaurants. But the issue with Whittier is they don't have any major grocery stores. They don't have a Cubs, they don't have a Target, they don't have a Walmart, they don't have a Sam's Club, they don't have a Whole Foods, because Whittier is where Hennepin County shoves a lot of low-income people. So Whittier is where Hennepin County puts a lot of low-income people in southwest Minneapolis. And so a lot of the people that live there are off Social Security or whatever, and they don't have a lot of money. And it's not their fault. Like, if I had the resources, I would move the people here from Whittier into, like, Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, Robbinsdale, that area where they could actually have better lives for the money. But Hennepin County, when, like, you're disabled or like, you're low income, rather shove you as closest as downtown Minneapolis as possible, so then you can have access to public transportation. But my opinion is, sometimes when you're low income, you don't really care about the best public transportation. You just want your kids or you to be safe. So if I had the money, I would move them out to Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, Robbinsdale, New Hope, Crystal, that area, where it's more safe, but there's still public transportation to get you to your local grocery store and stuff. But me and Hennepin County just have two different ideas. Because if you shove them in an area where there's not a lot of good job opportunities, and then you expect them to get employed, get off the system, they're going to fail. So that's why you need to start moving people out to the suburbs, low-income people out to the suburbs, and then use government domain to buy farmland and to build them, so then NIMBYs can't stop you because you're using government domain, and then build the low-income housing, and then people out there can actually have job opportunities. The low-income people, instead of them shoving them in all one big neighborhood. So when you read a lot of crime that happens in Southwest Minneapolis, it's happening here in the Whittier neighborhood because there are a lot of economic stranglers there. And then a reason why I have the Wedge grocery store highlighted was because when I lived in downtown Minneapolis, my only options for food was Lunds and Barley's, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, or the Target headquarters. But because the Target headquarters is like the cheapest grocery store in downtown Minneapolis and the easiest store to get to, a lot of the low-income people that are like me struggling from South Minneapolis, they bus to downtown because it's the easiest place to get to with the buses. And then they would buy out everything at the downtown Target. So then I wouldn't have blueberries, I wouldn't have strawberries. And Lunds and Barley's, Whole Foods, and Trader Joe's are really expensive. So I would take the bus, the same bus that takes me to my laundromat, to this Wedge this Wedge co-op. This is not considered a bodega because it's a co-op. A bodega is a mom and pop grocery store that's owned by one person. A co-op is a mom and pop grocery store that's owned by multiple people. And when I lived in downtown Minneapolis, I would go to a lot of bodegas because if I didn't have time to come down to South Minneapolis and go to the Wedge. And then, I'm not really an artsy person, but my friend Trina says this Minneapolis Institution of Art was really good. I'm not really an artsy person, so, and then over, here, it's just a bunch of apartment buildings because, if you're poor, the state of Minnesota has to shove you in an apartment building. And then, over down here, there's a bunch of single family homes, and it's just South Minneapolis, guys, is just a bunch of single family homes with restaurants randomly in between. Southwest Minneapolis is really built more like Columbia Heights. You're driving down, when you're driving down University, you see single family home apartment, single family home apartment, single family home apartment, then boom, a mom and pop grocery store slash bodega that sells cigarettes and snacks. And then more single family homes, apartment, and then another mom and pop grocery store slash bodega that sells snacks. And then boom, you're in Fridley, and then you have all the new modern suburban amenities. So that's how Whittier and a lot of South Minneapolis is built. It's I'm just blessed that Columbia Heights is a very Hispanic community, and a lot of Hispanics are very quiet and peaceful people. But it's kind of like Whittier is kind of built Columbia, how Columbia Heights is kind of viewed. Uptown is kind of built more like Fridley, and compact parking and all that stuff, but has everything you need. And then Whittier will be like Columbia Heights. And then you have the Phillips neighborhood. The Phillips neighborhood is the one I've been in the most. This is the neighborhood I used to go through every single day on the way to the Mall of America. I used to go through the Phillips neighborhood every single day because the D-Line bus goes from Brooklyn Center through North Minneapolis, through downtown Minneapolis, through the Central. I call this Central South Minneapolis, and then it goes through this rich part of Richfield, and then goes all the way to Bloomington, and then down American Boulevard. So, and this part of South Minneapolis is the roughest part. Central South Minneapolis, because all their business traffic, 98, 99% of it came from downtown. So people would leave downtown and they would go through this neighborhood to get to Richfield, Bloomington, So that's that, or they live down here by the lakes down here. You mean? Or they go through it because of the highways are so jammed with traffic. They would go through it and then get on down by Richfield or Bloomington to get the rest of the way home. But now with modern day working, where people don't have to work as much, from the office, because we now have technology. Thank the damn Lord for that. We people don't have to go through here as much anymore. And then it's hard to explain. Like a lot of the times when I hung out in South Minneapolis, I hung out in this part because I felt the most comfortable here. Not because of safety, I'm gonna say. South Central Minneapolis is kind of like the least safe part of Minneapolis, but I felt comfortable in it because I went through it for work every day. So I kind of knew who the troublemakers were. I kind of knew where the trouble spots were. I kind of knew where in the neighborhood to avoid and all that stuff. So it made it easier for me to travel there because I kind of knew everything. Sorry, guys. And then this area is where the Social Security office is. So if you're disabled in Minneapolis, your Social Security office will be here. And this neighborhood has an Aldi's. It has, a bunch of ma and pa grocery stores / bodegas. It has a co-op, but no major store like a Walmart, a Target, a Cup Foods. It's all like mall or like 95% mom and pop businesses, because when big corporations like Walmart, Target, and all that stuff were forming, a lot of those white people did not like African Americans, like the people who started Walmart, Target / Dayton. They didn't like African Americans, so they didn't open up their big corporate stores in African American neighborhoods. So what happens was they opened these big stores at Walmart, Target, and all that stuff in more white neighborhoods because they were white. So then, the African American neighborhoods, like, South Central Minneapolis, they didn't have any major stores because they were controlled by white people, and white people didn't want to open stores in their neighborhoods. So then they're like, okay, what are we going to do? So then they decided to open up their own stores. So now they have co-ops. Some of the co-ops in South Central Minneapolis are very, very good. And I would recommend you guys going out there to actually seeing them, because some of them are amazing. Some of the co-ops down in South Central Minneapolis are so big and they have so much food options. They could be like a small Target or Walmart or and they do a very good job. And some of the bodegas do a very good job. A lot of the small mom and pop grocery stores, co-ops, bodegas, or whatever you want to call them, do a very good job. Yes, it might not be healthy food they're selling, because trying to get bananas, strawberries, and tomatoes into these small grocery stores are very hard. But at least they're able to bring something. Yeah, pizza isn't healthy, but at least they're able to bring something. Pizza, chicken wings are not healthy, but at least they're able to eat food. To me, when I picture food deserts, I'm not picturing okay, a lot of scientists oh, we want them eating tomatoes, we want them eating salads, we want them eating apples, we want them eating strawberries, right? But to end a food desert, I just want them to have food. I just want them to be able to go to the grocery store, grab chicken nuggets, grab pizza rolls, grab canned tomatoes. So, canned tomatoes, because canned tomatoes don't go bad as quickly. Canned corn, canned vegetables, can this, can that, can this, and just be able to eat without starving. Because if you can at least go to a bodega / mom and pop grocery store or co-op and you can get some food, it's better than, just starving. So I rather have, I don't want them only surviving off fast food because that's not healthy. But I just want them to have some kind of grocery store. I don't care if it's a Walmart. I don't care if it's Target. I don't care if it's Aldi's or Trader Joe's or whatever. I just want them to have some kind of grocery store. And some areas of South Minneapolis don't even have that, like accessible. Like some parts of Whittier, they don't even have a grocery store, so they have to walk to another part of Whittier just to get a grocery store. And to me, it's important. When I chose Columbia Heights, I chose it because of the access to food I have. I have Family Dollar. I have the Hispanic grocery store up in Hilltop. I have the Middle Eastern store up in Hilltop. I have the Asian grocery store up in Hilltop. I have the Jewish grocery store up in Hilltop. I have the Indian grocery store up in Hilltop. And then in Fridley, I have Target, I have Aldi's, I have Cubs, I have Walmart, I have Sam's Club. I chose where I live because, yes, I'm disabled and I'm poor and I'll be renting a place with my mom forever, but at least I'm not going to be starving in the process. So, and then I'm safe. And then, there's a hospital down here because, because if you're way down here, and this hospital's owned by Lina, so if you're way down here, if you get hurt, getting to downtown Minneapolis is going to be a pain in the ass because all the traffic, the lights, and blah blah blah. So, and this hospital isn't big; it's a very small hospital, but it's just made to serve, South Minneapolis. It doesn't have to be big. And then, down here, and then this right here, the Deal and Steal. This place competes with Discount 70 in Columbia Heights. So I have it bookmarked because next time when I'm going to South Minneapolis, I'm going to check it out. So what happens is whatever returned items a store gets, like Kohl's, Target, whatever, if you don't like clothes and you return them, they go to like a liquidation warehouse. And then when they go to a liquidation warehouse, you can buy them for cheap because companies like this will buy those cheap items and then sell them for cheaper. And then they'll make money by selling bulk. So they're like a TJ Maxx or a Marshalls, but that buy returned items are not wanted items and sell them, because I like going to these places because they sell cheap furniture. They sell cheap clothes. Because like when I bought my sister's chair from Discount 70, technically that chair was supposed to have a leg rest. But when the person bought it from Target and opened up the box, there's no leg rest was in the box. So they returned the chair because they wanted a leg rest. Instead of Target bringing it to a big place and burning it, they brought it to their liquidation center, and then Discount 70 bought it at a discounted price and then sold it at a discounted price. So then, instead of you going to Target and paying $350 for a chair, you can go to a store like Discount 70 and pay $100 instead of $300. So stores for deals and steals, it's a really good. Those stores are amazing, and South Minneapolis is a good place to have them because a lot of people living here are doing minimum wage jobs, living off Social Security. And it gives them access. Yeah, technically, should they be blowing their limited money on clothes and furniture and stuff? No, but at least it gives them the same opportunities everyone else to have stuff. And this is my favorite place, and this is Lake Street. Right here, Lake Street is kind of in the middle of South Minneapolis. See how it goes all the way to St. Paul, and it goes all the way through Uptown and into St. Louis Park, and it ends in St. Louis Park. So if you live on Lake Street, there's a bus that'll literally take you from St. Paul to St. Louis Park. And so right when you go over the river, Lake Street hits University Avenue, the street I live on. And then like you can go up University Avenue through the U of M and head up to my house. So if I had a car, I could ease where I live, I can easily access this. But because I don't have a car, I have to go through downtown. But if I had a car, I can go around downtown easily. And this right here is, I call it this African American shopping district in my head, because this part of Lake Street right here is full of African American restaurants, African American clothing stores, African American pizza places, African American fast food restaurants, African American, like everything. And they have dental offices for the African American community and all this stuff. And all this surrounding here is all single family homes and random apartments inside the single family homes. And when you come to Southwest Minneapolis on Lake Street, you get a lot of more Hispanic and white businesses. But over here in central South Minneapolis, you get a lot of African American influences on Lake Street. And then my favorite places to do down here are like Matt's Bar. There is the 5-8 Club, and the 5-8 Club is more down here. That's a long bus ride for me, so I normally go to the one in Champlin because it's a quicker bus ride for me than the one way down here. But down here's the original one. And then, there is Tom's Popcorn. There's this lake down here with the golf course. There's Subway. That the problem with South Minneapolis is Tom's Popcorn is down here by St. Mary's Cemetery. The way that is when you're going down the major road on the D-line bus, and you're still and then you see the cemetery, because the D-line bus, when you're taking the D-line bus, St. Mary's Cemetery is going to be the only cemetery on the bus line. That's how I kind of know. That's how I remember where it is. And then there's another park here. So Minneapolis is very good with their parks, but the negative is their parks just need an update. Because, their parks were built 50, 60 years ago. So it's going to have park equipment from 50, 60 years ago. So if Minneapolis has updated their parks more, like how the parks in the suburbs do, it would make their parks more attractive to kids to go. And another issue is parking at the parks in South Minneapolis are kind of a pain, because a lot of these parks, when they built them 50, 60 years ago, they didn't include parking because they would thought everyone would want to bus, walk, or bike there. They would bus, walk, or bike to the park, and then they will be outside and they will bus or bike back. They did not think about 50 to 60 years ago that everyone will be driving cars and want to drive to the park. So the issue is a lot of South Minneapolis's parks they don't have any parking for their parks. So you have to kind of bus there or park in the neighborhood on the side of the road and then pray you don't get towed and then go to the park. And I really liked the Midtown Global Market because at least before COVID, because they had, they had cactus. They had all these weird foods that you could eat and try. So when I go to and there's this liquor store. This is the famous liquor store, the Chicago Lake Liquors, is where all the bad shit happens. So in South Central Minneapolis, this is where in the Midtown Global Market here, This is where all the bad shit happens. But if like you want to go shopping in this part of Lake Street, I advise you to park at the Midtown Global Market right here, because right here there's a huge parking ramp where you can park, and then you can walk down Lake Street, shop around on Lake Street. So if, my aunts from St. Cloud were coming to come visit me and my cousins that live down here, because my cousins lives in the South Metro, I would have them, if we want to hang on Lake Street, I would have them park here at the Midtown Global Market, and then we would walk down and party in Lake Street. And Tom's Popcorn's here and stuff. And Lake Street is kind of like South Minneapolis's shopping mall. So when I go to South Minneapolis, I mostly shop on Lake Street. Like, I have walked, guys, from the St. Paul part. I took the bus down University, got off here, and I walked down this whole Lake Street. And I normally stop at Midtown Global Market, because by the time I get to Midtown Global Market, I'm out of money. And then, and I bring my shopping cart with me. I have two shopping carts, a small one and a big one. I normally bring my big one, the one I use for Costco, Sam's Club, Walmart. And then, I walk down the street, and by the time I get down to like Midtown Global Market, my cart is like overflowing. and me shopping, I have never made it down to Uptown with my shopping. Because my carts, I already out of money, I should go home. And then I get off, and then I get here on the Midtown Global Market stop, and I go back to downtown, where I hop in the 10 to go back home. So, because there's so many good businesses on this street, like, to shop at. So right here, this is an example of a bodega. So see how over here, this little small Mexican grocery store? This Mexican grocery store is not a co-op, so they're not owned by multiple people, and so that's why they're bodega, and see how here they say traditional market. So that's kind of a hint to you that, hey, it's a market. You can go there and you can buy food, but it's not technically a grocery store. So Minneapolis has a lot of markets, bodegas, mom and pop grocery stores, but they're not a real grocery store like a Cubs and Aldi's, a Target. It's considered our labeling. But when I lived in downtown Minneapolis, I was just happy that these kind of businesses exist, because buying food there was so much cheaper than buying food at Lunds and Barley's, Whole Foods, or Trader Joe's. If I didn't have these like small bodegas / grocery stores when I lived in Minneapolis, my life would have been more difficult. And then here, there's another transit station. See, this is the Burlington I like, because this Burlington here on Lake Street, because I live in a very Columbia Heights, Blaine, Fridley, Anoka, and Coon Rapids is a very Hispanic community. So when I go to Burlington to buy cheap clothes, because Burlington sells overstock, so whatever Nordstrom can't sell, Nordstrom Rack can't sell, Macy's can't sell, Burlington will buy and sell it. So, but the issue is the Burlington up in Blaine, most of their customers are Hispanic men or Hispanic women, and they're smaller people. So then in that store, they send smaller people clothes. So when I go there, I like sometimes when I go to the one in Blaine, I'm special. They might actually have something my size, but they might only have 2 sweaters my size, or 2 pairs of pants my size, or whatever, because they're selling clothes for 5-foot tall people to 5.5-foot tall people. But when I go to Burlington down here in Lake Street, like where 95% of their customers are African Americans or Somali, or there's some Hispanics down there, but most Hispanics live up by me. So then because they're bigger people like me, I'm like 6'5" to 6'4", Depends if you count my hair or not. And then, so I'm a bigger person. A lot of African Americans are my size. So I can go to this Burlington, get cheap clothes that actually fit me and have more than just two options. And then I can get there with the Blue Line train. So, um, it's great. You mean I know I could do on my side of the river. I could take the bus down University and shop at the Burlington in St. Paul on University, and I could do shopping on University in St. Paul, but or on the U of M campus. But the issue is I don't know that area that well. And the train goes like I could take the bus, but the bus goes takes twice as longer than the train because the bus has to stop at every stop and there's a lot of stops. So the buses sometimes take longer than the train. I can get to the Lake Street from my house. I can get to Lake Street Midtown Station in 45 minutes because I just take the 10 to downtown and then hop on the train and pew. Well, for me to go shopping by the soccer field on University in St. Paul, that's pretty much the same distance because they only have bus there from my house. It'll take me about almost 2 hours because all the busing, stopping. So it's just easier for me to come shop down here than going towards St. Paul. And then going here takes me about the same amount of time as going to Rosedale Mall in Roseville. So sometimes to me, I'm like, do I want to go to the Burlington in Roseville, or do I want to go to the Burlington in South Minneapolis? So then I kind of choose because I don't like I'll go to the Burlington up in Blaine if I need dishes or things like that because they sell really good dishes there for cheap because Kohl's wants the new year's of pans, not last year's of pans, and this year's and last year's look exactly the same and have the same quality, but they were just made last year. So I'd go there to buy dishes and stuff, the one in Blaine. But if I really need clothes, I'll just go to the one down here in South Minneapolis. In South Central Minneapolis. And then down here, there's Tom's Popcorn, and there's down here, there's a lot of businesses. And then sometimes when I'm down here and I'm walking down the road, I'm the only white guy on the road. Until I see a guy come out of the business, I'm like, okay, and you forget there's actually white people that live down here. And it's a nice neighborhood. The closer you go down to Bloomington and Richfield and stuff, it gets more wealthier homes, more wealthier, stuff because you're going towards the lake here and you're going towards the suburbs. So it's pretty cool. And then here's the famous mats. I don't find mats impressive. I'm sorry to say. Just go to the frickin' 5-8 club in South Central Minneapolis or Champlin. And the good thing, the 5-8 club has parking. They actually have let you sit down and eat. Well, Matt's bar is kind of like one of those random bars in a middle single family neighborhood. It has no parking and whatever. So then you have to fight in the neighborhood for parking in someone's neighborhood. And then they only take cash, so then you have to pay cash, and it's just a pain. So I just go to the 5-8 club in Champlin or South Minneapolis, and I eat there because they make similar Juicy Lucy's. And these neighborhoods down here, I have not really visited them, but I've been through them on the way to work. Because when you're trying to work and stuff, you don't really have time. It's like, I'm going to stop at all 50 restaurants on the D-Line bus. I don't have time for that. And then, down here they have the VA, so if you're a veteran. And down here by the VA, you get those, because of the lake here, in the Highway 55 and Highway 62. Yep. You get a lot of the big mansions and stuff, the big homes, the big wealthy cha-ching over here. And it's pretty cool. Now over here, you get the smallest part of South Minneapolis. This is called Southeast Minneapolis. And Southeast Minneapolis is this area here is famous for the Somalian community. And the Somalian community gets a lot of shit right now because they're Muslim, and our country's based off the Christian faith. Years ago, this neighborhood was dying. I'm gonna say because they don't have any major at the time. They didn't have any major grocery stores. They don't really have any stores. This neighborhood doesn't really have any stores. Any. Well, years ago. What happened was, um, to save the neighborhood, this nonprofit brought Somalian refugees in. So here's downtown Minneapolis. Here's Riverside. So what they did was they put the Somalian refugees into Cedarside Riverside, the most struggling area of southeast Minneapolis, hoping that they would adjust to American culture, open businesses, and kind of make it like the other parts of South Minneapolis. And it worked. It completely worked. So now, and then here's the University of Minnesota, because now there's businesses here. People actually take the highway and they go to school at the University of Minnesota. They'll go to the games. You mean at the stadium. And the Somalian community saved Cedar Riverside. And the reason how they saved it was because this neighborhood has scary looking apartment buildings. Because this neighborhood is so old. This neighborhood's over 100 years old. And, and the buildings look like, how are these buildings legally allowed to still exist? That's how old the buildings are in Cedarside Riverside neighborhood. And based on what I read from the Star Tribune of why this neighborhood, the buildings are so old, because those buildings are almost like over 100. They don't know how technically old they are, but they're over 150 years old. Because they were built right after the Chicago fires, and they were just starting to build massive skyscrapers, and they were building them out of like concrete and stuff. And this is I go through this neighborhood a lot because when I went to school in southeast Minneapolis, I would take the Maple Grove bus to downtown, hop in the 7 bus. The 7 bus would go through the Cedar Riverside neighborhood and into the Seward where my school was, and then I would take the bus back home. And then that was like 10 years ago already. And then, over here, this is called the U of M calls this the West Bank because it's on the west side of the river. And this is called the East Bank because this is on the east side of the river. And this green space here is owned by the University of Minnesota. And the University of Minnesota enjoys their parks. They enjoy their parks and all that stuff. And then the Somalian community opened up, this is the building. I think it's the scary one. Yeah. Here it is. This is the building that, the Riverside Plaza, this is the building that scares the crap out of me. See, it reminds me of like the insides are nice. And this is like a low income building for Hennepin County. So if you're disabled, this is one of the buildings they'll shove you into. It's inside they're pretty decent, but from the outside you're like, holy crappers. And see how they have like a little garden and stuff in between the buildings because it was like they build them like commie blocks. And then see how they have a bunch of like Somalian businesses and regular businesses, and and then see how the apartments look here. These apartments, if the city of Minneapolis would just repaint them and make them look pretty and modern and stuff, the neighborhood will be less scary. This building, when people see it from the highway, scares half the people away from the neighborhood. And see how nice of views though you have out of there because you're so tall. They're so tall. You can see downtown. See how the building has a new section of it. They have a playground. You mean? But the issue with this neighborhood is they don't really have a lot of parking because the building was built such a long time ago that they don't really have parking. So this kind of building kind of scares everyone in the neighborhood, but during the day this neighborhood is fine. It's at night is where you have to be like a little bit careful. But because this is where the county shoves a lot of poor people, immigrants in southeast Minneapolis. But down here, when like you go into the Sherwood neighborhood, this neighborhood's a little bit different. Like these people are not rich like the people down here, but they're not poor like the people in Cedar Side, Riverside. And this neighborhood, oh god, at night, oh my god, it can get kind of like more if you go on this major shopping area here. Like I want to go check out this because this business here, this area is targeted by a lot of thieves. It's because it's Franklin. It's targeted by a lot of thieves. And in the grocery store here, I went to this mom and pop grocery store, and it was the first time I felt on edge in South Minneapolis. Like, I'm used to the danger, like, of the danger that happens down there. But I'm just telling you, it was the first time I really felt on edge because the grocery store wasn't this one, but I'll just click on it so then we can zoom in out. The grocery store I went to, the small grocery store, like you would walk in and you grab your stuff and the cashier is kind of behind like bulletproof glass and you put your food on the belt and then it gets sucked up underneath and then the door shuts behind you, so then like you can't attack the cashier. He takes your card, he scans or whatever, and then he puts it on the items with your stuff in a bag, goes down the belt, the door opens, and then shuts. So then you can't even touch the guy. You can't even shake his hand. Because at night, how bad the crime in this part of southeast Minneapolis gets. But during the day, I do get weird looks sometimes because this area is so Somalian, like more like blue collar Somalians, that in Cedar Riverside is more like low income Somalians, that sometimes I do get weird looks when I'm walking down Franklin here on their major shopping area because they're like, why is a white guy doing it in our neighborhood? And then they get suspicious. Is he the police? Is he, a drug dealer? Why is he in our neighborhood? And sometimes the kids will just come up and ask me. And I'll tell them, oh, I'm down here shopping, or hey, I went to school down here 10 years ago, and I'm coming down here for memories, and I'm honest with the kids, and then the parents are hearing me talk to their kids, and then the kids will, or the parents can understand what I'm saying, they'll translate to their parents, and then they'll stop staring at me. And see how there's like gyms and fitness centers down here. So next time when I come down here, I'm planning to get some pizza and stuff because the neighborhood is safe during the day. And this is their little playground. It's just you don't want to be there. It's safe during the night if you know people in the neighborhood. Because I don't know people in the neighborhood, it's dangerous for me. But if you know people in the neighborhood, it's not going to be dangerous for you because they're not your own neighbors are not going to attack you or think you're threatening because they know you. And then this is Matthews Park, and around this park, guys, is just a bunch of single-family homes, just a bunch of single-family homes. And then like see how this is the bowling alley I like going to when I go down to this neighborhood. And this bowling alley, guys, is just surrounded by single-family homes. It's just a random bowling alley in the middle of a bunch of single-family homes. And if you want to see what's going to happen to your suburbs in the future, just see what's happening to South Minneapolis, because South Minneapolis is going to, in like another 20 or 30 years, it's going to be what's going to happen to your neighborhood, because all the richer people, younger people will move on, go to a newer suburb, and your suburb will just become more middle class, and it'll become like South Minneapolis. South Minneapolis, guys, is the real America. South Minneapolis is how America was for the last 50 or 60 years that we have been denying. And a lot of baby boomers, they won't admit it because they don't want to say that, hey, we were wrong and we fucked up when we built the suburbs. So they don't want to admit that they were wrong. And then this is Lake Street again, and this is where I love this. Okay, I love how at least Target has one major store on Lake Street. I wish Target, after the riots, some of the other damages further down, like towards the west part of Lake Street, I wish Target, Cubs, Aldi's would buy those old storefronts, bulldoze them, and put a major store, because having a place like Target, guys, and Walmart, when like you grow up with them, you kind of end up taking them for granted. Like, yes, I don't agree with some of Target's store policies. I don't agree with Walmart's policies. I don't agree with Sam's Club's policies. I don't agree with all Costco's policies. But I like them because I can go there and get everything I need. If I still relied on a lot of small mom and pop businesses, like how there are in like South Central Minneapolis, it would suck because I would have to go to 10 stores to get everything I need. But so I like how Southeast Minneapolis has a Target right on the major like Lake Street area. So if like you lived in Southwest or you live in Central Minneapolis, you can just hop on the 21 and just that goes from like St. Louis Park to St. Paul, and just and then just do all like your shopping at the Cubs, Target, the Aldi's, and all that right here. There's a Planet Fitness, so you have no reason to get fat. If you say you're fat and you're lazy and you die from heart attack, you have no excuse because you have a Planet Fitness. You have a Cubs. You have free parking. Something that's rare in Minneapolis is free parking. You have a Wendy's. You have an Aldi's. And when you keep going down Lake Street, see how there's a library here? So you can have access to free internet and stuff, and then you have like restaurants, and McDonald's. Who doesn't like McDonald's? And all this is surrounded by single family homes. That's what I'm saying, guys. In 40 or 50 years, your suburb is going to be exactly like how people see South Minneapolis, because your way of shopping is going to be old. Your strip malls are going to be old. And the way you do things are going to be outdated. Dairy Queen. And down here, the reason why I'm going down this place, because there's a place called the Longfellow Grill. And this place is my stepdad's. My stepdad really likes this place. He really likes this place. And then along the river here, there's a bunch of like trails. And then right when like you go over this bridge, you end up in the rich part of St. Paul, because all the rich kids that go to the University of St. Thomas. So it's pretty cool. And then right down here, this is a really good restaurant down here that I want my family and me to go to one time, at least according to the paper. I haven't tried it myself, so that's why I'm gonna save it. And then down here, you get the Minnehaha Falls neighborhood. Where there's big homes and the falls, and and all that stuff. And then you have the airport and all that kind of stuff. And then there's public transportation. Like, not all these neighborhoods in South Minneapolis have access to public transportation. But if you want to know if like how like your neighborhood is gonna look like in 40 or 50 years, just come and drive through South Minneapolis and like down Lake Street and drive through South Minneapolis because South Minneapolis was built 40, 50, 60, 70, some areas were built 200 years ago, like the area around Uptown. And eventually, like all these fancy suburbs, like St. Louis Park, Edina, you mean Golden Valley, Plymouth, Maple Grove, New Hope, you mean Brooklyn Park. Eventually, they're just going to get old and people are going to move out to better homes and better shopping areas and Rogers, Clearwater, Monticello, and eventually one day your fancy suburb that you paid $800,000 for a house is going to become like a South Minneapolis. You mean it's going to become, to you it's going to look old, it's going to look like, oh my God, where did I move to? Because your town just got old. So when I chose Columbia Heights, so when I was looking on the St. Paul side of the river, and I was looking about where do I want to live? Do I want to live in Coon Rapids? Do I want to live in Anoka? Do I want to live in Blaine? Do I want to live in Fridley? Do I want to live in Columbia Heights? I chose Columbia Heights because I was thinking, because I spent so much time in Minneapolis, that in 50 to 80 years, when I'm living in Blaine or Coon Rapids or Anoka, they're going to label it as the hood because the buildings are old, the models are old, people don't find that fashionable anymore. You mean, so what people consider the hood is all just people playing, it's just us playing mind games on ourselves. It's just us playing, you know what I mean, thinking like, ha ha ha, we're better than other people because we have shiny buildings and they don't. Ha 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 ha. It's all just a mental fuck. Or you mean it's just, you mean you tickling your fancy in your mind? Well, in the future, by the time you get 80 or 90 years old, your neighborhood is going to be considered a hood. So I chose Columbia Heights because the buildings are not as old as like Northeast Minneapolis, but they're not as new as like Fridley, Blaine, Coon Rapids, and Anoka. So I thought like, cool, I still have my busing I need. Like when I live in Columbia Heights, I need to take Uber a lot. Yes, I do because the busing is not as good. So like if I'm going to like Fridley, the shopping mall in Fridley or Blaine or Coon Rapids or Anoka, I can easily get there by bus. But if I want to go to like my local park or whatever, because I'm a suburb, there is no like, bus to my local park. So I have to walk there or have to Uber there. But I'm okay with that because even if, I lived in South Minneapolis, the city buses only go to like the major shopping areas. And if your park or your store is not on a major shopping area, you still have to walk, bike, or Uber. So if me as a visually impaired man, if I lived in South Minneapolis, or if I lived in Columbia Heights, I'm living the same lifestyle because I need to take the bus to go to my grocery store. I need to take the bus, to go to my local shopping area. And then when I'm not going to my local shopping area, I just have to take Uber everywhere else. You mean me as a visually impaired person, even if I move to South Minneapolis, that's built similarly, I will have the same fate. So, but the reason why I didn't move to St. Paul, because St. Paul is a completely different beast. St. Paul is like taking a suburb like St. Cloud or Bemidji or Brainerd or Alexandria, you mean like that kind of city, and just putting it a suburban city and just giving it steroids. Because St. Paul, a lot of St. Paul was built during the 60s and 50s, where a lot of people wanted single family homes. So St. Paul and the St. Paul metro is like 95% single family homes, in my opinion. Well, Minneapolis, because it's like a newer city than St. Paul, they kind of learned from St. Paul's mistakes. And yeah, they still made some of the same mistakes as St. Paul, but they don't have as many bad mistakes as St. Paul. Because they learned some of the lessons from St. Paul. Like, hey, you can't make half the area all single family homes because where low income people go to live. We can't have low income people living in the parks in tents. Because St. Paul, guys, so bad that they have so many single family homes and so little apartments that low income people were literally sleeping on the state fairgrounds in St. Anthony, in the city of St. Anthony, in parks. People were sleeping in Little Canada in parks. People were sleeping in the Rosedale parking lot. Because if you guys think Minneapolis has a lack of apartments for low income people living and stuff, St. Paul is like 3 times worse. St. Paul is like 3 times worse when it comes to having affordable housing than Minneapolis is. So when I chose where I lived, I chose Columbia Heights because I can get to Roseville, where I can get to downtown St. Paul, or I can hop in the 10 bus to go downtown Minneapolis. And I wanted to stay within the Minneapolis conference because the Minneapolis world provides more options than the St. Paul world. So, in my opinion, this is all my opinion. Don't strangle me, and then see how I have like my dentist in Robbinsdale so I can go to downtown and then take it out to Robbinsdale. I have my Social Security in Brooklyn Center so I can take the 801 bus Monday through Friday or take an Uber to go from Columbia Heights to my Social Security office. And then up here, when I used to live in Maple Grove, I bookmarked a bunch of restaurants to go to. And see, there's my Pearl Vision in Maple Grove. So sometimes I Uber there, sometimes because this is, so I go from Columbia Heights to my Pearl Vision out in Maple Grove, So me as a disabled person, I can't, like restrict my life if you're a disabled person like me, I encourage you to live in South Minneapolis and downtown Minneapolis because you'll have more services that you need shorter bus rides away. Because like to me sometimes just to get to my Social Security office, it takes me about an hour and a half of bus ride. And if I'm willing to pay for Uber, if I'm willing to pay $22 for Uber, it takes me 10 minutes. So, that's why I just pay for Uber about half the time because it takes me 10 minutes. So, because they hop on the highway and go boop, boom, we're here. They turn off the highway, boom, we're right at Social Security office. So, instead of me going all the way to downtown, waiting for the next bus, and me going all the way up to Brooklyn Center, then hopping from Brooklyn Center, hopping a different bus to go, it's just a pain. So, so if like you're a person with disabilities, I would just encourage you to live I would encourage you to live more in Southwest Minneapolis because West Minneapolis closest to uptown as possible because you can go shopping in St. Louis Park, you can be working in St. Louis Park, you can go work in a diner, you can shop in Edina, and then if like you're busy and you don't have time to go to the big suburbs to do your big shopping, you still have you still have a good local grocery store near you that you can get your basic necessities in until you have the time to go to St. Louis Park in Edina. So, and then also if like you live in South Minneapolis, there's more low income housing than in the suburbs, there's more public transportation than if you lived in the suburbs, so then you have more independence. I'm just blessed because I have parents that support me, and I live with my mom, so I have money to help me get Ubers and stuff, and I have so I have a better support system. But if you're if you're a disabled person without a good support system, you want to move to South Minneapolis. You just want to, because it has the public transportation you need and the low income housing you need to live. But when I lived in downtown, if I wanted to go to Minneapolis, when I wanted to go to Walmart, I just went to the Bloomington Walmart. I just hopped in the D bus with my big grocery cart, went to the Bloomington Walmart, did all my grocery shopping, and then I just went back to downtown. Um, and so Bloomington is way down here. So I would go through from downtown, through South Minneapolis, through Richfield to Bloomington. That was like about a 45 to 50-minute bus ride, just one way. Do my grocery shopping and make that back. So that's why I didn't go to Walmart that often. And when I worked at the Mall of America, it was such a pain because I would have to leave work, take 45 minutes just to get home, and take 45 minutes just to get to work, and I would try to get to work half an hour early, because if something happened to the train or bus, I wouldn't be late. And going between downtown Minneapolis and Mall of America every day for work, it just became exhausting. But when I had a lease in downtown at Minneapolis and I couldn't find a job in downtown Minneapolis after Nordstrom Rack closed, I had no choice. I did what I had to do. Now that I'm living in Columbia Heights, I'm trying to find a job up here in the shopping area and making these YouTube videos. So I hope you guys have a good day, and I hope you found the video informative. Bye-bye.